Poor mechanic's son fixed a female CEO's car in the rain. What happened next changed their lives forever. The rain hammered down like bullets on the cracked asphalt of Route 9, each drop exploding into 1,000 tiny fragments that glittered briefly before being swallowed by the growing puddles. Inside his father's cramped garage, 23-year-old Marcus wiped grease from his calloused hands, watching the storm through the open bay door with a mixture of exhaustion and resignation. His father lay in a hospital bed 15 miles away, the medical bills stacking up like the unpaid invoices gathering dust in the office drawer. Marcus had been alone for 3 months now, keeping the garage alive on prayers and determination, fixing cars for customers who increasingly chose the gleaming franchise shops on the highway. Tonight, he should have closed an hour ago. Tonight, he should have been at the hospital. But something kept him there, standing in the doorway, as if fate itself was holding him in place. The sleek silver Mercedes appeared through the rain like a ghost ship emerging from fog, its hazard lights blinking frantically as it limped toward the garage. Marcus stepped out into the downpour, immediately soaked to the bone, as the luxury vehicle coasted to a stop. The driver's door opened and a woman stepped out, mid-30s, wearing a designer suit now plastered to her frame, her dark hair streaming water. Even drenched and obviously distressed, she carried herself with an unmistakable air of authority that made Marcus suddenly aware of his oil-stained work shirt and torn jeans. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice competing with the thunder. "I know you're probably closed, but my car just died and I have an emergency. My daughter, she's in the hospital, and I need to get there." Her composure cracked slightly on the last words, and Marcus saw something raw and desperate flash across her face. "Let me take a look," he said simply, already moving toward the car. She blinked, surprised by his immediate response, by the lack of questions or hesitation. As Marcus popped the hood, she stood beside him, holding her phone with white knuckles, watching him work with an intensity that spoke of barely controlled panic. "The alternator's shot," Marcus said after a few minutes, rain running down his face. "And your battery's dead. I have the parts, but—" He paused, calculating. The parts would cost him nearly $200. Money he desperately needed for his father's medication. The woman reached for her purse, but Marcus shook his head. "I can fix it in about 30 minutes. Get inside where it's dry." "How much?" she asked, and there was something sharp in her tone now, the voice of someone used to knowing the price of everything. Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, and saw past the expensive clothes and the luxury car to the terrified mother beneath. He thought of his own father, lying in that hospital bed, and how he'd felt driving there night after night, praying his ancient truck wouldn't break down and leave him stranded. "No charge," he said quietly. "Just get to your daughter." Her eyes widened. "I can't. That's not—" "Please," Marcus interrupted gently. "Let me do this." For a moment they stood in the rain, two strangers connected by nothing more than a broken car, and a shared understanding of fear and hope. Then she nodded, tears mixing with rainwater on her cheeks, and retreated into the small waiting area while Marcus worked with swift, practiced efficiency. 35 minutes later, the Mercedes purred to life, its engine humming smoothly. The woman emerged from the garage, and Marcus saw that she'd been crying. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes red-rimmed. She pressed a business card into his hand, closing his fingers around it when he tried to refuse. "Please," she said, echoing his earlier word. "I'm Victoria Chen. Tomorrow, when things are calmer, I want to properly thank you." She hesitated, then added, "Your father. I saw the hospital bills in there." "I hope he's okay." Marcus flushed, embarrassed that she'd seen the scattered invoices and past due notices that papered his makeshift office. "He will be," he said with more confidence than he felt. "Go, be with your daughter." She drove off into the darkness, and Marcus locked up the garage, never expecting to hear from her again. The wealthy made promises in moments of crisis, he knew, but rarely followed through. It didn't matter. He'd done the right thing, and that was enough. 3 days later, a black SUV pulled up to the garage. Victoria Chen stepped out, this time in casual clothes, looking more human and less like a corporate statue. Behind her came a little girl, perhaps 7 years old, with bright eyes and a cautious smile. "This is Emma," Victoria said. She wanted to meet the man who helped us. She's okay now, appendicitis. But they caught it in time. The relief in her voice was palpable. Emma stepped forward and handed Marcus a drawing, a stick figure in a garage, with hero written in crayon above it. Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Thank you," he managed. "But I'm no hero, You gave a stranger kindness when you had every reason not to," Victoria interrupted. "You sacrificed parts you couldn't afford, time you didn't have, for someone you'd never met. That's exactly what a hero does." She paused, then continued. "I've spent the last 3 days learning about you, Marcus. About your father, about this garage, about the medical bills that are drowning you. I'm the CEO of Chen Technologies. We manufacture automotive diagnostic equipment, and I want to offer you something." What she offered changed everything. Not charity. Victoria was too sharp for that, and Marcus too proud to accept it. But opportunity. A partnership. Chen Technologies needed a consultant, someone who understood cars from the ground up, who could test their equipment in real-world conditions and provide honest feedback. The contract she offered would pay enough to cover his father's medical bills and keep the garage running. More than that, it was a chance to expand, to modernize, to transform his father's struggling business into something that could thrive. "Why?" Marcus asked, overwhelmed. "You could hire anyone." Victoria smiled, and for the first time, it reached her eyes fully. "Because 3 days ago, you taught me something I'd forgotten in 20 years of business. You showed me that real wealth isn't measured in dollars or stock, options. It's measured in the willingness to sacrifice for others without expecting anything in return. That's rare. That's precious. And that's exactly the kind of integrity I want in my organization." The partnership transformed both their lives in ways neither could have predicted. The garage flourished, becoming a testing site for cutting-edge diagnostic equipment. Marcus's father recovered, returning to work part-time and beaming with pride at what his son had built. Victoria found in Marcus not just a consultant but a reminder of the values that had driven her before ambition had, hardened her edges. Emma became a regular visitor to the garage, fascinated by how things worked, dreaming of becoming an engineer. Years later, when reporters asked Marcus about that rainy night, he would smile and say the same thing every time. "I just fixed a car." But what I learned is that kindness is never wasted. It ripples outward in ways we can't imagine, touching lives, creating connections, building bridges between worlds that should never have met. That night, I thought I was alone, struggling, barely holding on. But I wasn't alone. None of us ever are. We're all connected by our capacity for compassion, by our willingness to see each other's humanity even in our darkest moments. One small act of kindness in the rain had changed 2 lives forever, proving that sometimes the greatest wealth we possess is simply the courage to care.